Todd, it's our third SHOT Show that we've had while we've been at Military Times. You know, the big focus is on firearms, but there's also a lot on the gear side for service members that they might be interested in. What have you seen in terms of gear?
Right, there's a couple different things I've noticed last couple of days that are trying to solve some problems that soldiers are facing with kind of new battlefield requirements and different kinds of dangers and preventative stuff. So one is Galvian has created what they call the EDG. It's a rail system for their helmet, basically a helmet-borne system that has a power pack on the back, and you can hook in all your lights, all your comms gear, your night vision devices, so you can power everything and transfer data. Gentech Corporation has a similar device. They call it the Rail Link, very similar kind of setup for kind of high-cut helmets. So what that's doing is kind of lessening the load on the soldiers so they're not having to carry as many batteries. They can power things all in one device. There's less cabling. That helps a lot with streamlining the gear. We're also seeing some new weapon sights. So for instance, the Teledyne FLIR released at SHOT Show this year the Thermosight HISS HD. It's a high definition scope really designed initially for the 338 Norma Magnum machine gun program that SOCOM is doing. It's a long distance, 50 caliber ranges, 50 caliber devastating effects and capabilities, but in a weapon that's half their weight or less in a 338 caliber. And that optic or scope, the Thermosight, a thermal sight, you add onto the front of the weapon, in front of the scope. It can also be used on sniper rifles. And the really interesting thing about that is about 4 times more power of resolution. So you can see things as like where the hand placements are if someone's carrying a weapon more than a mile away, which is pretty incredible. But even more interesting than that, you can do what's called day trace, where it's such high precision in terms of resolution on the camera in that thermal sight. You can track the bullet in daytime or nighttime, so you can watch your bullet go down range and actually walk on target like you would with a machine gun without using tracers. So the opposing forces isn't seeing your tracer. You're just watching your own bullet go out through that thermal sight. It's able to track those things.
And within the gear, there's also innovation more on the health side, I understand, to help track potential concussions?
Correct. So, traumatic brain injuries is a big topic today. It's something we're aware of more now than we've ever been. Over the course of the 20-odd years of the GWAT era, more than 500,000 service members have been diagnosed with some form of TBI or traumatic brain injury. Well, this product called the Q Collar by Q30 Innovations is being used in the NFL and other professional contact sports. It basically is worn around the neck. So what it does, it's kind of interesting how it works. It basically just puts about a pound and a half of pressure on the neck, which tightens up and constricts blood flow from the jugular vein going to the brain. How that helps, according to the science and research that's been shown so far, is it basically slows the blood flow out, which keeps more pressure in the brain. Think of like an egg yolk, the white around the yolk itself, keeping the brain from moving too much inside the skull. So a lot of concussion issues are because the brain itself sloshes around inside the skull on impact. It slams inside the skull, the bone, and it causes bruising or damage or tissue damage there. You can't really protect for that with a helmet. A helmet helps outside impact. It doesn't help internal stuff. So they've seen some promising things in professional sports. There's still more research to be done as far as blast and pressures there, but it's on display here. I spoke with those folks, and they're seeking some DoD involvement.
In this technology, you've been seeing some people are seeking out DoD contracts. Is that the way they think they're going to get into this unit, the way they're planning to get into the unit? Or are they also looking to maybe not the Q collar, but the other items, have service members themselves buy them for their own squads, or maybe some squad money on the smaller unit side, purchasing that, or do they want the big contract?
I think it really varies on the device. So for instance, with the Thermosight I mentioned earlier, that's something you wouldn't necessarily be able to field unless it was approved by DoD or approved by the unit purchase and approved for use in the field. It's also quite expensive, as well as with the helmet-mounted rail systems and data systems. Those will kind of be a unit purchase or fielded through a program of record eventually. Now, however, like the Q collar is actually being used right now by certain special operators in SOCOM, some just by their own choice. They've tried it out, they've saw good effects, and they're purchasing it with their own money and just wearing it when they're doing these kind of training events. So it kind of varies on the product, the kind of expense, and also the approval. So again, like certain weaponry, certain devices, optics, those type of things are down either to unit approval level or DoD unit approval level, but more like personal safety stuff, things like that, you can purchase yourself.
And the last time we were here, you and I both together was pre-COVID, and also big, Army contracts that the big gun manufacturers were fighting for. That's not around anymore, and I think that's why we're focusing a lot more on the gear side. Fill us in on that contract for those of us who just got started listening.
Oh yeah, so over the last few years, you've seen a flurry of activity in small arms, especially across all the services, primarily the Army, which is the biggest service in driving a lot of that small arms change. So way back in 2017, you saw the modular handgun system being awarded to 6 Hour. They won that contract, and now that is the sidearm for the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, and the Marine Corps. That's been fielded. More than 500,000 units have been fielded out to troops already. All the accessories are kind of out there, the holsters, the laser sights, the different types of weapons, lights and things like that. So those are kind of taken care of. And that's going to be the contract probably next 10, maybe 20 or longer years. I mean, the Beretta M9 was the official sidearm for more than 30 years. So that's long tail kind of contract that's service wide, and it's done. The next generation squad weapon system, which is the close combat force, think like infantry, scouts, combat engineers. The replacement for the M4, which has been in service or M16 for more than half a century, that was awarded back in 2022, along with the automatic rifle, which was the SAW, or the squad automatic weapon, the M249. That's been replaced as well. So yeah, a lot of your weapons contract stuff, there was a lot of busyness over the last, say, 4 or 5 years. A lot of that's been decided. So other than some small one-off contracts with, say, Special Operations Command, or maybe some sniper rifle replacements in the near future, a lot of the firearm stuff has been resolved, and you'll see that for the next decade or more.
Todd, thank you so much. Great seeing you again here at SHOT Show.
Thank you.